coming up.
Completely unsanctioned by the church.
Stone on Air.
Whatever, let's just do this.
Stone on Air.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Give human beings opportunity, and you'll be absolutely shocked with what people do with it.
Stone on Air coming up.
Stone on Air.
All right, hey everybody. It is the first edition of Live in Stone's Garage. We'll see how this goes. Hi, Facebook Live. How are you? Good to see you. Mean it. Love you. This is the most listened to, most downloaded, and most easily accessible podcast in the city of Chattanooga. This is the StoneOn Air podcast, live in my garage. I'm not a big fan of yours either. I hate man, a generation. I picked it up, then I threw it away. I hate man, a generation now. It's alright. Recording this live to tape over in the city of East Ridge. Don't judge me. There's a couple of slices of East Ridge that are awfully nice. Just a couple. My name is Bryan Stone. Here with me today is Nick and Greasy Rick. Got a couple of shows doing the Nightmare Before Christmas here locally and regionally. We'll get to both that here and talk about those shows here in a few minutes. And this is kind of going back to the way the show was for 6 months on the air, and then about 3 months as just a standalone podcast, and I haven't done that here since hanging out at the market, which was a lot of fun. I still want to again thank Chris Thomas, who I don't think most people go to the market and say, "Hey, Chris, can we be here at the market and can we do no paperwork, no formalities, exchanging of no money, and just let me just kind of have a corner?" I highly doubt he says yes to people if they were to come with that approach, but he did for me. So I certainly appreciate that, and I'm going to do it again next season as well once it warms up, probably in the middle of the summer or so next year. Speaking of next year, between, all three of us on the show today, some transitional movements into the new year. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a little bit. I mentioned on the weekly dose, which is what I've been doing. I tried to do it daily, and it was exhausting, and so I've changed that to now the weekly edition of the podcast. Will be available every Wednesday, first thing, basically in the middle of the night, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, kind of a midweek download destination, if you will. Just commentary, conversation on news or just whatever. It's just kind of a little variety spoken word thing. That'll be every Wednesday starting last week and continuing hopefully for the rest of my life. And then this show will probably live in more of a monthly kind of way going forward. I'm not totally sure on that yet. But I mentioned last week that I would tell you about the Harlan Carter story because it's from the subject matter of a Drive-By Truckers song. And it's a little bit of a, I don't know, not really a Christmassy, really positive story and conversation to have. And this is the Christmas edition of the StoneOn Air podcast. So I'll put that off until the weekly dose this week and Wednesday. So if you're looking for the Harlan Carter story, the half dozen or so of you out there that were waiting for that, we'll do that coming up on Wednesday. Met Rick Rushing. Didn't meet him. Saw him. I met him a long time ago, but saw him at Main Times 24 in all his glory, in his mink coat. I don't know if it's real. It's probably not real, but big fur coat, big top hat. Looked incredible down on the south side. He will be the next guest on this podcast. When that'll be, probably in January. He was excited about it. I'm going to get right to the point here. And Christmas music today is Bumper In and Out. This is Let Me Sleep from 1991. Pearl Jam puts out a Christmas single every year for their fan club. And it's become a very, especially those old ones in the 90s, crazy collectible vinyls. And this was the very first one in 1991 Let Me Sleep, It's Christmas Time. Nick Lutsko, Greasy Rick coming up next for the rest of the show, and we'll talk about the Nightmare Before Christmas shows coming up and play some of those tunes as well. My name is Bryan Stone. Appreciate you guys finding the show. More coming up next. Nick and Greasy Rick join me for the rest of the way. We'll be right back. Hang tight.
Oh, when I was a kid, oh, how magic it seemed. Oh, please let me sleep, it's Christmas time.
Stone on Air will be right back.
He's cool.
StoneOnAir.com.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring.
Christmas music from Weezer. We wish you a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holidays or whatever it is. I don't care. Just enjoy yourself. Worship the sun for all I care. Enjoy it. My name is Bryan Stone. Thank you for finding the podcast. However it is you might do, you can download it at any podcasting app. You can go to the SoundCloud page. You can listen to it through Facebook. I highly suggest you download it through a podcasting app because that works out best for me. With me today, live in the garage, which actually I think is going to... Sorry, Daryl. Live at Daryl's house, live in Stone's garage, whatever. Still, the good ideas are often stolen. With me today in my garage is Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick. Hello, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Greasy, for being here and coming out with the full costume and everything. I appreciate we can't reveal who Greasy Rick really is. We got to keep this thing in character, right?
I'll tell you right now who Greasy Rick is. Greasy Rick. It's more of a split personality kind of thing, I think.
Handful of things to talk about today, and we're gonna get right to playing some music. You guys are gonna do all music from The Nightmare Before Christmas today.
I believe so.
And that's pretty darn cool. Let's talk about that real quick because when I was young, I was into a lot of pop culture and all these things in the 90s, but one that never grabbed my fancy was Tim Burton or any of his weird things he was doing. I just wasn't. I mean, I guess it was Beetlejuice. Is that we were talking about?
Yeah, it's Tim Burton.
Score Burton. Okay, I did like Beetlejuice, but I didn't get into The Nightmare Before Christmas other than what I've just quick Googled to just kind of refresh my memory. It was a poem that Tim Burton did in the early '80s.
Yes.
And then in around 1990, he shopped it to Disney. Then they around '93, it was released, the movie, but the score and the soundtrack was by Danny Elfman. Tell me about him and what about this score movie franchise of characters is so fascinating to you?
Well, I love the movie since I was a little kid, mainly because my parents wouldn't let me watch it. It was a movie like I had a babysitter during preschool. And,
because I would have been 11 years old, and I'm a lot older than you. I would have been 13.
Right,
I would have been
yeah.
13 years old.
So
you were pretty young.
What year to come out?
93.
Yeah,
It
93.
says when it was
so I was like
released.
2 or 3 years old when it came out. So by the time I was 4 or 5, whenever that was, at daycare, I went to daycare with 2 other little girls for some reason. It wasn't really daycare. I think I was just staying at some lady's house. But she had like your stereotypical Disney movies like.
Because it is a Disney movie.
Yeah. And that was the one I always went for, and I never told her that my parents would let me watch it. And so I had that kind of, I have that connection to it of like,
It's
know,
almost
like
that
the earliest form of rebellion I
that
can think
taboo.
of.
You're doing something you're not supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
And when I got older, I realized how much I liked the music, not even for nostalgic reasons, just because it's so unique and different than other Disney musicals. And when I learned more about Danny Elfman, played in Oingo Boingo for at least a full decade, maybe 1.5, 20 years, something like that. But I think Tim Burton was a big fan of the band and asked him to score his first movie, which was Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and that sparked their relationship, which is still going on today. I think he scored all of his movies, but maybe 1 or 2. And actually, it's you just started going into like the origin of Nightmare Before Christmas, and a lot of people don't realize that Tim Burton didn't actually direct it. He produced it. It was he wrote the poem and had the concept, but I think the guy's name's Henry Selick.
Yeah, directed by Henry Selick.
He's done a lot of other cool claymation stop action
Produced
movies,
and conceived by Tim Burton, directed by Henry Selick.
Yeah, and he did like James and the Giant Peach and Coraline and some other movies with similar styles.
Speaking of Pee Wee Herman, I was looking at some of the voices for the characters of the movie. Paul Rubens.
Yeah.
Isn't that Pee Wee Herman?
Yeah, that's Pee Wee.
I wasn't sure, so he's got a voice on that too. This started a couple years ago. I'm going by memory. Did you do it as a Halloween?
We did
thing?
it the night before Halloween at the camp house last year is where we debuted it, and
it's a Christmas theme, but it does have the Halloween feel.
It takes place in Halloween Town, yes.
And then he moves on to Christmas Town.
It's about Jack Skellington, who's the king of Halloween Town, and something's missing. He's lost some kind of spark, and he goes rummaging through the woods and comes across Christmas Town, and he realizes he wants to be Santa for a year. So that's kind of what sets things in motion. Actually, I think the 3 songs we're playing today kind of like is the perfect introduction to exactly what I just said. Maybe we can do those in order and you can get a taste of that.
Let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. It's the Stone on Air podcast. My name is Bryan Stone. Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick here. We'll talk about the show at JJ's and the show in Valdosta, Georgia as well. And we'll do that here in just a couple of minutes. Appreciate you guys finding the show. Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick live.
This is Halloween. 1, 2, 3, 4. La 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 la. Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see. This our town of Halloween. This is Halloween, this is Halloween. Pumpkins scream in the dead of night. This is Halloween, everybody make a scene. Trick or treat, till the neighbor's gonna die of fright. It's our town, everybody scream. In our town of Halloween, I am the one hiding under your bed. Teeth growing sharp and eyes growing red. I am the one hiding under your stairs. Fingers like snakes. This is Halloween, this is Halloween. Halloween, 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 Halloween. In this town we call home, everyone hail to the pumpkin song. In this town, don't we love it now? Everyone's waiting for the next surprise. Around that snowman hiding in the trash can, something waiting that abounds in how you scream. This is Halloween, red and black and slimy green. Aren't you scared? That's just fine. Say it once, say it twice, take a chance and roll the dice. Ride with the moon in the dead of night. Everybody scream, everybody scream. I'm the clown with the tearaway face, here in a flash and gone without a trace. I am the who's there? I am the wind blowing through your hair. I am the shadow on the moon at night, filling your dreams to the brim with fright. This is Halloween, this is Halloween. Halloween, 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 Halloween. Tender lumblings everywhere. Life's no fun without a good scare. It's our job in our town of Halloween. In this town, don't we love it now? Everyone's waiting to the next surprise. Skeleton Jack might catch you in the back and scream like a bitchy, make you jump out of your skin. This is Halloween, everybody scream. Won't you please make way for a very special guy? Our man Jack is king of the pumpkin patch. Everyone hail to the pumpkin king. Now this is Halloween, this is Halloween. Halloween, 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 Halloween. In this town we call home, everyone hail to the pumpkin song. 3, 4. La 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 la. Woo!
Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick performing cuts from The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is the Christmas edition of the StoneOn Air podcast, live in my garage. A little experiment here. So far, so good. Ivy from Studio Sam hanging out with us and filming it as well. So we'll be up on YouTube and on the website and all available for you all over the place all month long. So I appreciate you guys finding the show. More from The Nightmare Before Christmas. We'll talk about the shows coming up with Nick and Greasy and other things as well. Thanks for finding the show, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy birthday if it's your birthday.
Ramadan.
Happy 4th of July if I don't talk to you in July. Happy Labor Day. Happy life. Be right back.
Now more Stone on Air.
The beautiful sounds in my head.
StoneOnAir.com.
You're back with the StoneOn Air podcast. My name is Bryan Stone, the Christmas edition of the show. Thank you for finding it. This is my favorite Christmas song ever, and it's not even a little bit about Christmas.
No travel plans, no shopping malls, no candy canes, no Santa Claus. For as the day of rest draws near, it's just the two of us this year.
It's a song about absolutely adoring the person you're spending time with. It doesn't have to be at Christmas, regardless of who that person is.
No silver bells or mistletoe, we'll kiss and watch our TV show. Now come to you, now sing to you like it's Christmas in the room. Now dance with you, now laugh with you till it's Christmas in the room.
It's impossible to think that it was 4 years ago that I was spending time with somebody I was quite fond of at the time, and it's like, we got to go see this show at Track 29. Soup. What are you talking about? Who? Fine. Okay, I'll go. And even at the time, knowing that what this whole situation, my life situation, was probably not going to last a lot longer, I did it anyway. And it's very rare you see a show, and it was his Christmas, it was Sufjan Stevens, it was his Christmas show. And it's very rare you hear a song, and as soon as you hear it, you're like, holy bleep. Oh my God. That's incredible. Like, usually you need a couple spins. Usually. And that's when I heard this song, I was like, okay. Sorry for being skeptical and cynical about this situation. This is pretty cool. So, 4 freaking years ago. Time flies, and it ain't got a thing to do with whether you're having any fun or not. Recording the podcast live to tape in my garage, the Christmas edition. Thank you for finding the show with me today. Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick are my guests. We'll play another cut from The Nightmare Before Christmas that he'll be playing both at JJ's and where in, you said in Valdosta, right?
We're playing Ashley Street Station.
Street Station.
December 23rd. We played it in a couple nights before Halloween, or I guess the night before Halloween earlier this year, and it was a lot of fun. It was a Sunday night.
So all my loyal listeners and watchers and followers in Valdosta, I appreciate you being here, as well as everybody in Chattanooga, and you can check that show out later in the month. And then coming up on
a week from today, not a week from whenever you're listening, but December 17th.
Yeah, that's the tricky part of these podcast world. Wait, I'm listening on January 3rd. You mean it's next week?
Yeah.
So December 17th at JJ's, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I hope this doesn't come across as a weird question. I'm gonna ask you one question, and then we'll play another tune from the soundtrack and the score. I've had this in my head for a while to ask you. I got to frame this right. People like Tim Burton and real creative, sometimes dark minds that come up with incredible artwork, whether it be music or puppetry or Wayne White things like that create things that what we'll call quote unquote normal people couldn't do.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so fascinating. And I know a lot of different types. I know normal, everyday 9-to-5ers. I know people who live bizarre lives, regular lives, whatever. And it's to do a lot of the things that you do, your mind has to be in a lot of different places that I would call the normal person isn't at. But you live what, if you look from a Facebook snapshot world, a pretty normal kind of life, it looks like. I mean, and Nick Lutsko, good old American boy over there. We got holidays, and he's there with a smile on his face. Hey, family photo, all this stuff. Is there a figurative, switch in your head that you can flip and go into the basement or go into your room or go into where you've got your stuff, and you can actually, kind of get into that place to create the music and the thoughts and the ideas that you do? I mean, how do you balance that? Because to me, it's fascinating. I don't mean this in any kind of way other than fascination.
No, I got you, and I can see how that could come across. I don't live alternate lives or anything like that.
I didn't mean to imply that you did.
But I could see how. I mean, you could probably say the same thing about all those other guys you mentioned. I think a lot of people are a lot more creative than they give themselves credit for.
That's probably true.
And I think what it really comes down to, at least what it comes down to for me, is just trying new things and then continually forcing yourself to go out of your comfort zone and write songs you couldn't see yourself living, or create a character that you've never, you know what I mean? I didn't, I look at someone like Wayne White and I'm like, man, how does he do that? And then I go to Hobby Lobby and buy some crap and make some puppets that I didn't think I was capable of making, and I learned his situation was pretty similar to that. And even, Greasy, which I made a very makeshift, crappy-looking version of Greasy, and he took it and turned it into something. You know what I mean? I think it just kind of takes
Greasy,
that initial taking off point.
Are you a weirdo like us, or a little bit, too? We all got a little weirdness in us, right?
No, just 9-to-5 kind of guy.
9-to-5 dude that just puts on a Muppet head and plays on
9-to-5 weirdness, and then 5 to 9.
The main reason I ask,
husband.
The main reason I ask is because, growing up, I played music. I always wanted to do, artistic kind of creative things, and I actually, at one point, deliberately said, "Let's live a life that's interesting. Let's live a life that's different than everybody else." I mean, I can tell you about if I had, and there's a lot of downfalls to that. Trust me, a lot. But I mean, if I had, wife, kids, 5-year-old, had a ball game over the weekend, and then a birthday dinner on Sunday. Okay, great. I mean, good for you. Good for that life. But there ain't a damn thing I can create out of that to just discuss. And so I've often and kind of deliberately done that. You can call that fake. You can call it fraud. You can call it whatever you want. But I was just curious because I just see good old boy, American boy Nick over there, and then I see
I'm an American man.
The things you create, and it fascinates me. So that's the only reason I brought that up.
Cool.
Not to imply that you live two lives and you're dark world over here and all that. This is the StoneOn Air podcast. Let's jump right back into it. The Nightmare Before Christmas is coming up at JJ's and at what'd you call it in Valdosta?
Ashley Street Station. December 23rd.
Ashley Street Station. So the 17th.
ASS for short. ASS. Ashley Street Station.
ASS for short.
That's
I like
what
that.
they are on social media.
All right. Nick and Greasy Rick performing another cut from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Live to tape on the StoneOn Air podcast.
This one's Jack's Lament. There are few who deny what I do. I am the best, for my talents are renowned far and wide. When it comes to surprises in the moonlit night, I excel without ever even trying. With the slightest little effort of my ghost-like charms, I have made grown men give out a shriek. With the wave of my hand and a well-placed moan, I have swept the very bravest off their feet. But year after year, it's the same old thing, and I grow so weary of the sound of screams that I, Jack the Pumpkin King, have grown so tired of the same old thing. Oh, somewhere deep inside of these bones, an emptiness began to grow. There's something out there far from my home, a longing that I've never known. Well, I'm the master of fright and a demon of light, and I'll scare you right out of your pants. To a guy in Kentucky, I'm Mr. Unlucky, and I'm known throughout England and France. And since I am dead, I can take off my head to recite Shakespearean quotations. No animal or man can scream like I can with the fury of my recitation. But who here would ever understand that the Pumpkin King, with his skeleton grin, would tire of this crowd if they only understood? I'd give it all up if I only could. Oh, there's an empty place in my bones that calls out for something unknown. The fame and blame comes year after year, does nothing but these empty tears.
Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick live in my garage, as a matter of fact. This is a StoneOn Air podcast recorded live to tape, and have a webcast out there as well, and hopefully start doing these regularly every week, or excuse me, the weekly dose every week, and then this show potentially every month. I'm still trying to work it out. Ivy shooting film, thank you very much for being here. One more go-round with Nick and Greasy, and we'll wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys finding the show. It's the most downloaded, the most listened to, and most easily accessible podcast in the city of Chattanooga. My name is Bryan Stone, and we will be right back.
Nobody's planned, no place to go. It's just the two of us alone. And in the house we see a light that comes from what we feel inside. I'll come to you.
More of Stone on Air coming up
I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo.
at StoneOnAir.com.
With my very primitive setup, I'm the only one that can actually hear what's going on in real time the entire time. So when I dance around and hum along, I look like a total fool, especially on Facebook Live. First, you know exactly what it is, but who's doing it? It's Linus and Lucy from Mo. Who'd you yell out?
Peanuts? What'd you say? Mo?
The band Mo. Doing Linus. So again,
Yeah, I can't hear.
he can't hear. Last segment of the show, the Christmas edition. So the final Stone on Air show for 2016. January 17th will mark the year anniversary. Once again, time flies. Boom, gone. If you're having fun, it goes by fast. And if you're having an absolute drag, it goes by pretty quick as well. So a lot of cool new stuff going into 2017 as far as trying to get more on it's been 5 months since I've been doing this as a podcast, webcast, standalone only, and it's been a lot of trial and error. And I'm beginning to getting through a bunch of the errors and figuring out what works best. And I'm really looking forward to 2017. And I don't mean to be that, next year's going to be great, everybody. It's going to be great. they're not always going to be great, and sometimes things say exactly the same, but I actually do have some pretty high hopes for 2017. Nick and Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick are in here with me as well, and also kind of in the same boat as far as doing things a little different into the new year. Been working with some new drummers, and I only know Crispy by Crispy. What's his
Eric
name?
M. Crisp.
Eric Crisp. I had Strung Like a Horse on. It was on my birthday. The coolest freaking radio show I've ever done. It was so much fun, and that's when I met Crispy. And then I've known Adam Brown for a long time, and
we're getting around.
And so you're going to be kind of playing, musical drummers a little bit here. How's that going to work?
Well, Crispy's going to be doing the Nightmare stuff. We went through a transition period towards the end of the summer, and Crispy filled in for a couple shows and went down to Florida with us to do the Nightmare stuff. And he's going to do it with us this Saturday, and Adam's going to be sitting in on the original set. So,
well, Adam, I invited him to come, but he hadn't played with you guys much, so he didn't want to jump in just yet. Adam and Dan were my first guests back on January 17th. Maybe. Hopefully have Adam in some variety. The guy plays with everybody in the city. He can adapt, like that. Mm-hmm. So the Nightmare Before Christmas shows coming up at JJ's on the 17th. Ashley Street Station in Valdosta on the 23rd. And live to tape right now in my garage over here in East Ridge, Tennessee. So let's put the wraps on the show. And it's Nick Lutsko, it's Greasy Rick, and it's StoneOn Air.
Listen, everyone. There were objects so peculiar they were not to be believed all around, things that tantalize my brain. It's a world unlike anything I've ever seen, and as hard as I try, I can't seem to describe like a most improbable dream. But you must believe when I tell you this. It's as real as my skull, and it does exist. Here, let me show you. This is a thing called a present, and the whole thing starts with a box. A box? Is it steel? Is it filled with a pox?
Pox, I don't like pox.
If you'd please. Just a box with bright-colored paper, and the whole thing starts with a ball. But why? What's in it? What's it? The point of the thing, not to know. Will it bend? Will it break? Listen now, you don't understand. That's not the point of Christmas land. So pay attention for 2 seconds. We pick up an oversized sock, and we hang it like this on the wall.
Oh yes, does it still have a foot?
Let me see, let me look.
Is it rotted and covered with gook?
Let me explain. There's no foot inside, but there's candy. Or sometimes it's filled with small toys.
Small toys, do they bite?
Do they snap?
Or explode in the sack?
Or perhaps they just spring out and scare girls and boys.
What a splendid idea. This Christmas sounds fun.
I fully endorse it. Let's try it.
Everyone, please now, not so fast. There's something here that you don't quite grasp. Well, I may as well give them what they want. And the best, I must confess, I have saved for the last. For the ruler of this Christmas land is a fearsome king with a deep, mighty voice. At least that's what I've come to understand. And I've also heard it told that there's something to behold, like a lobster, huge and red. When he sets out to slay with his reindeer on, carting bulging sacks with his great big arms. That is so I've heard it said. But on a dark, cold night, on a full moonlight, he flies into the fog like a vulture in the sky. And they call him Santa Claus. Well, at least they're excited, but they don't understand that special kind of feeling in Christmas land. Oh well.
Nick Lutsko and Greasy Rick live in my garage. Who am I? My name is Bryan Stone. I appreciate you listening to the podcast, the most listened to, most downloaded, and most easily accessible podcast in the city of Chattanooga. Ivy, thank you for shooting film. Thank you on Facebook Live. If you hung out there, this is the band. It must be Christmas tonight. the Christmas edition of the show. And as I would always say at the end of the year, regardless of where I was working, the fact that you take out any amount of your day to listen to anything that I'm involved in means more to me than you'll ever understand. And that I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you very, very much for finding the show. And like, share, and always love, and all that good stuff. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy everything. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Greasy. Thank you, everybody out there.
Merry Christmas, Chattanooga.
JJ's the 17th and Ashley Street Station on the 23rd. Talk to you in 2017 on this show. Talk in the Weekly Dose on Wednesday. Bye.